What's on, guys? J-Hoyd back with you. Today, welcome back to Modern Warfare 2. What feels like forever that isn't a gameplay on Shipment and or Shoot House. We actually have a good Hardpoint gameplay from Mercado Hardpoint. I believe it's Mercado anyway. It looks really good, it plays really good, and I actually had a good game for once. So today, we are here to talk about Stage 2, post Stage 2. We had a little bit of a Rostermania period. And also, before I go on, I'm sorry if I've sounded a little bit different, a little bit under the weather today. I know my voice is probably a little bit affected. I can already kind of feel it in my, in my throat. So I'm sorry in advance, but we got to get some gameplay, got to get some good videos out for you. So let's go right down the line here, alphabetical order, starting with Atlanta FaZe. They stay the same. They won the last tournament. No reason for those guys to change. We mentioned it in last video, but Boston Breach Methods, he ends up retiring, and it was announced, I think, yesterday as I'm making this video, probably a couple days ago for you guys as you're seeing it. He retires. He joins Optic Gaming as a content creator, which he kind of hinted at it at his retirement speech. He said the future is green. Now also Boston Breach was green. There's a lot of other teams that are green, so that didn't really help. But, he reunites with his longtime friend in Methods. But what do they do as far as a competitive team? Well, they already had a good substitute in Beans. Now, I don't really know too much about him, but he does join into the lineup, starting with, obviously, Beans, Awakening, Vivid, and Nero. We'll see how they go, right? Starting, I think it's this weekend. I believe it is. The qualifiers start for Stage 3 or Major 3 or whatever we're calling it these days. He is in the lineup for that. So, another team actually making a two-person change is the Florida Mutineers. Now, I believe I said it right from the start of the year when I first made a video about the event, and I wish I would have made more videos regarding the offseason and everything, but I never saw this Florida team doing well, like realistically. Their initial roster was just like bottom of the barrel team, like players, like some players that kind of stood out a little bit in challengers, all kind of thrown together, and then you had what's left, and I feel like that was like almost like a Paris strategy from last year. Now they're Las Vegas. They, Legion did a little bit something different this year, which we'll talk about next. But Florida ends up dropping Vickle to the bench. He's a Spanish player. I definitely didn't see that really working out. You're not necessarily denying any of their skill or talents, but it was too just like, it didn't really make sense, like realistically. Then you had Dave Patty go into the lineup. Then he was released completely from the team, which was like, okay. So now you have Fellow and Capsidal signed to the starting roster. So along with Fellow and Capsidal, you also have Havoc and Brack. Now Brack was dropped for whatever reason. Like, he was their best player by far. Statistically, just didn't make sense, personally. And I know a lot of other people did not think that made sense at all. So with this new roster, does it get any better? I don't know. I mean, just looking off name talent alone, I mean, Fellow's been around for a long time, but I don't know if this team has the skill to compete with the likes of the top four. Your Optics, your LA Thieves, your Atlanta Phases, your Toronto Ultras, like your New York Subliners right now. Like, those types of teams, like, you're fighting a lot of really, really good talent. And I just don't feel like that team has enough to get there. I don't see them really competing too much at the top. Maybe they get an upset over one of like the mid to bottom of the tier teams, but fighting for the top, I don't think they're going to get there. Next, we have the Las Vegas Legion. Now, they did, actually do something right this year. They actually spent a little bit of money, tried to get a decent team together. So they signed Clayster, Temp, TJ Haley, and ProLoot this year, which was like, hey, we actually have a decent team this year. Like, at least on paper, this was a decent team. They don't end up kind of showing up. They don't really do that great. Well, they want to do something different, so they dropped ProLoot, which was interesting, right? I didn't, ProLoot was a guy that fit well into the optic system, but, how well can he do you know, on other teams. So you're playing with different players, different roles, different whatever. How good is he going to do there? Well, they didn't think he was good enough or whatever, so they moved him to, actually, they completely released him. My bad. They completely released him from the team, and they signed Real. Another player I know about nothing about. I know, was he the one that debuted, was it Seattle or Florida or something, and he was, like, completely terrible? Dropped, like, a point, like, 6 or something through, like, 4 matches or something. Like, it was, like, he did not do well. So he joins this team with TJ Haley, Temp, and Clayster. Does this make this team better? I don't think so. I mean, you know, I don't know too much about Real, but, you know, this team kind of just looks like a very lateral move that I don't really see them doing too much better with this team, especially, again, given that top talent, that top, like, 4, top 5, top 6. I don't think they're going to get there, personally. London Royal Ravens, another team that kind of already made a roster change during, I think it was during Stage 2, where they initially dropped, who they initially dropped? They dropped 0 out of the team for Scraps, and then they do, no they didn't, because I think they were talking about something else. So Asim, Nasty, Paulex, and Scraps, they kind of already made the roster change. Maybe they're going to stick around for one more, you know, stage and kind of see what they can do, but... again, does this team... I think these guys are completely last, if I remember correctly. Does this team make them any better? I mean, we kind of didn't really see much of it into the event, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how long those guys actually stick out. LA Guerrillas kind of already made their like big roster change for the year. Not that they can't make more, but they basically swapped 3/4 of their academy team, brought them up to the starting roster. They dropped Hook. Again, I just don't feel like this team can compete. I feel like they're letting Arcides down big time, where Arcides goes from arguably the favorite to win to a team that's in the bottom, like, 4. Like, I just don't see this team doing well unless they sign some significant talent to this roster. Like, plain and simple, I don't see this team doing well. Plain and simple. Then we have a couple teams that stayed exactly the same. The LA Thieves, the Minnesota røkkr, the New York Subliners, the Seattle Surge, and the Toronto Ultra all stayed exactly the same. Seattle Surge has been rumored to be making changes, although there, is it a coach, GM, whatever he is, said they're staying the same. So I would have liked to see that team change just because you have Pred, you have Mac, you have Sib, 3 really good players, and then you have accuracy. And not saying accuracy is the problem, but he's going to be the one that gets dropped from this team regardless of if he's the problem or not. Like, he is that guy on the team. He's the scapegoat on that team. Him or Mac, one of the two. Like, there's no way you're dropping Pred or Civ unless they literally are a free agent and you have no other choice that they just reject you. Like, plain and simple. But our last team, of course, let's see if I point the... Hey, I did it this time. I pointed the correct way. Optic Texas. Now... one team that I definitely thought, along with a few other ones, that was not going to make a change was Optic, right? You pick up Hook, you get Dashy back into the team, you have Illy on a different role in the main AR, you have, like I said, Dashy back in the flex role, kind of playing a little bit more fast, a little bit more slay heavy. You kind of get the Zeo trio back together, and you look like, on paper, one of the best teams in the league. And then they announced that Illy is dropped. Where did that come from, right? We just placed top 4, looking pretty darn good after Scump retires, right? You have a little bit of a roster shuffle, if you will. You drop Dash, you bring him back, you drop Illy. Now you have Ghosty in there, which another Challengers player, which I don't know too much about. And then for like the first time, I think, ever, Optic picks up a Challengers player, like, middle of the year. Like, not like a Dashy who was on, like, Complexity that they signed, or, you know, like, Shotzi who came, like, from Halo. I know he was on Dallas Empire, but, like, it wasn't like a, hey, you signed him from, like, another, like, top team. It was, like, straight from Challengers, called up. And it's not, like, usually Challengers players get called up to... a Paris Legion, a Las Vegas Legion, a LA Guerrillas, a London, you know, a Florida, like one of those bottom teams. They perform okay. They're like either, hey, we can make this work around this guy, or they just don't, so they just release him back. And it's just a constant cycle of that. right? You come in, play a couple games, hey, yeah, not really working out, send him back down. So this is going to be a big opportunity for Ghosty, right? He already kind of confirmed he's playing the flex role for that team. So you have Hook Shotzi as your sub duo, you have Ghosty as your flex, and Dashy as your main AR. And I don't know too much about Ghosty, but apparently he's highly regarded, you know, for Parasite, and Parasite's obviously been around for a very long time, and is kind of well respected, but also really hated in the scene. But he knows his shit, basically. He knows his stuff. He talked to Fellow, who obviously got picked up. Hey, what do you know about this guy? Hey, he's the real deal. Sign him. Like, and he's not just going to any team. He's going to Optic. Out of all teams, Optic. He's not going to one of those bottom teams and doesn't have high expectations. He's going to the biggest team in the league. Now, not arguably the best team, but the most, like, recognized team in the league. Like, that's insane. So that's a big opportunity for Ghosty to kind of show his worth. You know, if... Now, I want to play the hypothetical here. If Ghosty doesn't work, right? If they play with him, realize he doesn't really fit their system, doesn't really fit how they want him to play on the team, what do they do now? Like, do they bring Illy back if he's not already on a new team? Do they go get someone else? Do they try to trade for somebody? Do they try to sign another person from Challengers? What do you do if Ghosty doesn't work? Right? And the big thing off of that is, where does Illy go? So, he hasn't been on a team, like, he hasn't been on the bench for a team and not gotten picked up. So, he's on Optic's bench right now. He's their substitute, if you will. Where does he go? Right, as a main AR, flex, AR player, I see Seattle Surge. That could be an interesting team there. Toronto, he goes back to Canada, but I don't know who you would get off of that team. Subliners, I don't think are going to make a change. Minnesota røkkr, I don't feel like they would make a change. LA Thieves aren't going to make a change. I mean, maybe he goes to LA Guerrillas and hooks up with Arcities. I don't know where he goes after that. He's not going to faze. I don't know. That's a definitely interesting conversation that, you know, is probably behind the scenes, but maybe he's also their backup plan. If Ghosty doesn't work and they don't find the right, you know, trade or right buyout or whatever the case, you know, Illy might just be there for the foreseeable future and kind of fixing whatever the problems were, and maybe comes back in the team, maybe he doesn't, but for now, that's where he is. But that's going to do it. That's all the teams. That's all 12 teams. We had about half the league, I believe, stay the same. Yeah, exactly. Half the league stayed the same. Half the team made changes. We'll have to wait and see upcoming for the Stage 3 qualifiers. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below if you haven't yet. Or if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe. Turn those post notifications on so you never miss an upload. And don't forget, you can always change your mind later. With all that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next one.